It started slowly, almost too quietly to notice. Samantha began mentioning Ryan's name more often. Just little things, casual stories from college memories. Ethan smiled at first, pretending not to care. Everyone has a past, he told himself firmly. But something in her tone felt different each time. There was warmth there, a spark that wasn't for him. Ryan had just moved back to Seattle for work. They grabbed coffee to catch up, she said lightly. Ethan nodded, forcing a calm he didn't feel. He told himself trust mattered more than jealousy. Still, unease sat heavy in his chest every night. Soon, the stories became more frequent, more personal. She laughed differently when she talked about Ryan. Her eyes brightened, like recalling something she'd missed. Then came the lunches, the networking events, the late replies. Ethan noticed her phone glued to her hand, constantly. When he walked into the room, she'd flip it over. Once, he asked casually what Ryan was like now. She shrugged, smiling too easily. He's different now, more mature, really driven. Ethan nodded, pretending to agree. Inside, he felt something cold bloom behind his ribs. They used to share everything, thoughts, jokes, plans. Now there was distance in her voice, invisible but sharp. Mark, his closest friend, saw the worry on his face. Over beers one evening, Ethan finally confessed everything. Mark leaned back, giving him a serious look. "Man, I've seen this movie before," he said quietly. "It starts as coffee, ends in heartbreak." Ethan tried to laugh it off, but the words lingered. He wanted to trust Samantha more than anyone. But every late night, every vague text chipped away at him. Her excuses grew predictable. Late meetings, team dinners, traffic. She started dressing up more, saying it was for work. Ethan noticed new dresses, brighter lipstick, unfamiliar perfume. When he complimented her, she brushed it off quickly. He began to wonder if he was imagining everything. Maybe he'd become paranoid, insecure, unreasonable. He tried to bring it up one night after dinner. Samantha rolled her eyes and called him dramatic. "Ryan's just a friend," she said, voice sharp and tired. "Don't make something out of nothing." Her words stung more than he expected. He dropped the subject, but couldn't drop the doubt. The warmth in their home cooled into awkward silence. Every evening felt like walking through glass. He'd wait up for her, pretending to read or work. She'd come home late, smelling of wine and perfume. "Just drinks with the team," she'd mumble, heading to bed. Ethan stared at the ceiling long after she slept. He missed her laugh, her warmth, her easy affection. It felt like living with a stranger who wore her face. Trust turned to guessing. Love turned to waiting. And deep down, Ethan knew something had already broken. He just wasn't ready to admit it yet. The distance between them grew in quiet, invisible ways. Samantha was there, but not really present anymore. Her laughter came softer, her smiles faded too quickly. Ethan tried to hold on, pretending nothing had changed. He planned date nights, cooked dinner, made small efforts. She always had an excuse ready before he finished asking. "Too tired tonight. Deadline tomorrow. Maybe this weekend." Weekends came and went, filled with silence and her phone. Ryan's name kept appearing in small, sharp moments. "He said this great thing today. He's so funny. He gets it." Ethan felt the sting every single time she said it. It was like being compared to someone he'd never met. One evening, she mentioned showing Ryan their favorite spot. The tiny taco place they'd discovered years ago together. Ethan felt the air leave his chest completely. She didn't even notice the way his face changed. He asked quietly, "That's our place, remember?" She just smiled, distracted, and said, "Oh right, I forgot." Forgot. The word echoed long after she went to bed. He lay awake, staring at the dark ceiling, heart heavy. Mark's voice played in his head again and again. "It starts as coffee, ends in heartbreak." He didn't want to believe it, but it felt too close. Days blurred into weeks of tension and suspicion. Her texts grew shorter, her voice colder, her hugs rare. When she did touch him, it felt mechanical, rehearsed. He tried to ignore the growing ache of being unwanted. Then came the night, everything cracked wide open. Ethan came home, early, after a brutal day at work. The apartment was dark, except for the kitchen light. A note waited on the counter in her handwriting. Out with work, friends, don't wait up. Something about it didn't sit right in his gut. She told him that morning she'd be home for dinner. He'd even bought ingredients for her favorite pasta. He texted her once at 7, then again at 9. No answer, straight to voicemail. By midnight, his worry turned into something colder. The sound of the door unlocking made his heart race. Samantha stumbled in, hair messy, eyes glassy from alcohol. He asked softly, "Where were you?" "Out, I told you." Her tone was sharp, defensive. She kicked off her heels, ignoring the tension around her. Her phone buzzed on the counter a moment later. The preview lit up the screen, Ryan's name. "Had an amazing time tonight. Let's do it again soon." Ethan's world went silent, every sound fading away. He asked, barely above a whisper, "You were with Ryan?" She looked at him like he was the problem. "You're so paranoid. It's exhausting." Then she grabbed her phone and walked away. Ethan sat alone, the kitchen light burning above him. He realized the truth was right there in front of him. It wasn't about trust anymore. It was about finally accepting what he already knew. The person he loved had already left, just not physically yet. The message came on a quiet Saturday morning. Ethan was helping his father build a deck behind the house. The air smelled like fresh wood and summer heat. His phone buzzed once in his pocket, soft and casual. He wiped his hands and checked without thinking. It was from Samantha. Just 5 words that shattered everything he'd been holding. "We need to talk. I'm with Ryan." The rest of the message blurred before his eyes. "I need some space. Don't contact me." His chest tightened, a hollow ache spreading through him. He read it again, and again, until the words lost meaning. His father looked up from the workbench, sensing the silence. "What's wrong, son?" Ethan handed him the phone without speaking. His father read slowly, jaw tightening with quiet disappointment. When he finally looked up, his eyes were steady. "She made her choice, Ethan." Ethan's voice broke. "What am I supposed to do?" "Nothing," his father said simply. "You let her go." "But shouldn't I ask why? Don't I deserve an answer?" "You deserve peace more than answers." The weight of those words hit harder than the message itself. He wanted to scream, to demand, to beg. But instead, he put the phone down and said nothing. That night, the house felt too quiet, too empty. He lay awake, the ceiling spinning in the dark. 3 days passed without a single word from her. No text, no call, no explanation, just silence. Every hour dragged, a mix of anger and disbelief. He replayed every memory, searching for the breaking point. Maybe it was his fault. Maybe he'd missed the signs. Maybe love wasn't enough this time. By the 3rd day, he was barely functioning. He went to work, but couldn't focus on anything. Coffee tasted like dust, food like nothing. Mark showed up that evening, carrying a 6-pack. "You look like hell," he said, dropping onto the couch. Ethan told him everything in a low, cracked voice. Mark listened, shaking his head slowly. "She's testing you, man, seeing if you'll crawl back." Ethan stared at the floor, feeling small and stupid. "I don't even know what to do anymore." "You don't chase," Mark said firmly. "You move on." Then he asked a question that changed everything. "Didn't you get a job offer in Austin?" Ethan blinked. "Yeah, but I turned it down for her." Mark leaned forward, eyes sharp. "Then take it, call them tomorrow, start over." Ethan hesitated, torn between pain and reason. "What if she comes back?" "Then she comes back to an empty apartment," Mark said. "Don't wait for someone who walked away." The next morning, Ethan stared at the job email again. His heart pounded, as he typed his reply. "Hi, this is Ethan Miller. I'm reconsidering your offer." He hit send before he could change his mind. It felt like exhaling after months of holding his breath. For the first time in a long while, he chose himself. And deep down, he knew there was no turning back. The following week moved like a storm through Ethan's life. He called the firm in Austin first thing Monday morning. The hearing manager sounded genuinely happy to hear from him. "We were hoping you'd reconsider," the man said warmly. The position was still open, waiting for him. Ethan agreed to fly down that Friday for a final interview. When he hung up, his hands were shaking. It wasn't fear anymore. It was freedom dressed as adrenaline. He didn't tell Samantha, though her silence still filled the air. 3 days had passed since her message, not a single word. Then, on Tuesday afternoon, her name lit up his screen again. "Can we talk? I figured things out." He stared at the text for 10 long seconds. Not because he considered it, but because he didn't. Then he typed 2 words that sealed his decision. "No need." He blocked her number and felt an instant, quiet release. The weight that had lived on his chest began to fade. That night, he opened boxes and started packing his life. Every drawer held pieces of what used to be them. Her sweaters, her books, the photos of vacations and laughter. He sorted them into labeled boxes, calm and methodical. Her name written in thick black marker across each one. It was strange how peaceful it felt to let go. Mark came over on Thursday to help him pack. They filled the living room with cardboard and tired jokes. "You're really doing this," Mark said, tapping up a box. "Yeah," Ethan replied quietly. "I'm done waiting." He rented a small storage unit across town for his things. Every trip there felt like one step further from the past. By midnight, the apartment looked half empty, half free. Ethan looked around, realizing how much of it was hers. The throw blankets, the candles, the tiny fake plants. All the details that made it feel warm now felt foreign. He kept only what was his, the furniture, the essentials, his peace. Friday morning came with nerves and a little hope. He flew to Austin, staring out the plane window in silence. The city below shimmered with light, unfamiliar but alive. The interview went better than he expected. The office was bright, modern, full of people with purpose. They talked for hours about engineering, design, and innovation. For the first time in months, he felt excited again. By the end of the day, they offered him the job. Higher pay, better benefits, relocation included. Ethan accepted on the spot, heart steady and clear. On the flight back to Seattle, he didn't look back once. He knew there was nothing left to stay for. Samantha had made her choice. Now he was making his. He spent the weekend, packing the rest in silence. Each taped box felt like closure, clean and final. He called the landlord, gave his 30-day notice. He left her belongings neatly stacked near the door. No note, no explanation, just quiet goodbye. The path forward was set, and for once it belonged entirely to him. Samantha's silence didn't last long. By Monday morning, the first email arrived. It was long, emotional, filled with half apologies and excuses. "I just needed time," she wrote. "You overreacted." Ethan read it once and deleted it without a reply. By Tuesday, another message came through, sharper this time. "You're being unfair. I didn't cheat. I just needed clarity." He closed his laptop and blocked her address. For a few hours, peace returned, until the phone rang. Unknown numbers started calling nonstop throughout the day. He didn't answer a single one. Each missed call felt like another piece of her desperation. Wednesday afternoon, she showed up at his building unannounced. Security called to ask if they should let her in. Ethan's stomach dropped as he heard her name. "No," he said firmly. "If she refuses to leave, call the police." He watched on the security feed as she argued downstairs. Her gestures wild, her voice breaking, mascara streaked down her face. Eventually she left, leaving silence and guilt in her wake. That night, he sat in the dark, staring at her packed boxes. He wasn't angry anymore, just tired of the noise. The following day, another email slipped through his spam folder. I ended things with Ryan. He was a mistake, I want us. He hovered over delete for a long moment, then pressed it. Every word sounded like too little, too late. Mark stopped by that evening with takeout and a grin. She's spiraling, man. I saw her post online. Ethan sighed, rubbing his temples. I don't want to know. Fair, Mark said. But just so you know, Ryan ghosted her. Ethan froze, unsure if it mattered anymore. Apparently, Ryan had stopped answering her after a week. She'd been left with nothing but regret and screenshots. Ethan didn't feel revenge, only quiet relief. By Friday, more letters arrived at his door. Handwritten, messy, desperate. Please talk to me. Don't throw away 3 years. He tossed them all into the recycling bin, without reading further. On Sunday, his younger brother called from Chicago. Dude, she found me on Instagram, he said, half amused. She wants me to tell you she's sorry. Ethan laughed bitterly for the first time in weeks. She's running out of people to beg, he said quietly. Even his family had started to block her attempts. The more she pushed, the clearer his path became. He called the building manager and warned them politely. They flagged her photo and added her to the no-entry list. The last days in Seattle passed in a blur of boxes. Friends came by to say goodbye, offering hugs and good luck. When he returned home one night, a note waited on his door. Her handwriting again, small and shaking. I love you. I made a mistake. Please don't go. He crumpled it in his hand and dropped it in the trash. The choice had been made long before the ink dried. Sometimes love ends not with a scream, but a quiet refusal to look back. The morning of his move arrived with soft gray light. The movers showed up early, quiet and efficient. Ethan watched as they carried out boxes of his old life. Each thud down the stairs sounded like closure. By noon, the apartment was almost empty, echoing with absence. He walked through every room one last time. The walls that once held laughter now held nothing. He didn't feel sorrow anymore, just release. He left Samantha's boxes, stacked neatly in the lobby. A note for the manager read, "For pickup, Samantha Reed." He locked the door, turned in his keys, and didn't look back. Mark met him outside, waiting beside his car with coffee. You ready for this? He asked with a knowing grin. Ethan smiled for the first time in weeks. Yeah, completely. They hugged like brothers before parting ways. Mark's last words stayed in his mind. Don't ever look back. The drive out of Seattle felt like breathing after drowning. The highway stretched ahead, wide and empty. Music filled the car, loud enough to drown out memory. He sang along until his voice cracked from release. Hours passed, miles disappeared, and the city became a blur. When the sun began to set, the sky turned gold and red. He stopped at a gas station in Oregon to refuel and breathe. The reflection in the window looked like a new man. He was tired, but lighter than he'd been in months. Somewhere far away, his phone buzzed again. A Facebook message, her name. He shouldn't have checked. I hope you're happy. You destroyed everything, it read. Her words spilled with blame and bitterness. You ran away instead of fighting for us. Ethan stared at it for a moment, then blocked her quietly. He didn't need closure from someone who'd already left. The road kept moving, endless and forgiving. By the time he reached Austin, dawn was rising. The city glowed with promise, warm and unfamiliar. His new apartment smelled like fresh paint and possibility. No photos, no memories, no ghosts, just space to start again. He unpacked slowly, savoring the silence. Work began the following Monday, bright and hopeful. His new team welcomed him like an old friend. The projects were meaningful, the people driven and kind. For the first time, he wasn't defined by heartbreak. He was just Ethan, rebuilding, breathing, living. Weeks later, he sat at a cafe downtown, watching the sunset. The city hummed around him, alive and forgiving. He thought briefly of Samantha, not with pain, but gratitude. Because her leaving had forced him to find himself again. He finished his coffee, smiled, and walked toward the light. No backward glance, no regret, just calm acceptance. Some endings don't need revenge or answers. Sometimes peace is the only thing worth keeping. The night settled quiet over Austin. Ethan stood on his balcony, city lights flickering below. The air was warm, carrying the hum of distant traffic. He took a deep breath and felt stillness instead of ache. Everything he had lost had led him exactly here. No more unanswered texts, no more waiting for love to return. He finally understood that peace was not something given. It was something you chose when you stopped chasing ghosts. He thought of Samantha one last time, then let her fade. Her face, her voice, her apologies, all drifted away like dust. The horizon stretched wide and open, full of quiet promise. He smiled, a small, honest smile that reached his eyes. The past no longer hurt. It simply existed and was gone. Tomorrow would come with new roads and new faces. And for the first time in years, he wasn't afraid of starting over. He turned off the balcony light and stepped inside. The door closed softly, like the ending of a long story. In the silence that followed, he whispered to himself, "I'm free." And for the first time, he truly meant it.